Introduction. Let's speak English. Part 1.
Good morning. Listen, please. I am the teacher. You are the student. I am English. You are not English. An Englishman speaks English. Englishmen speak English. I am speaking English now. This is a table. This is a gramophone. This is a record. The record is on the gramophone. The gramophone is on the table. You are sitting at the table. You are holding a book in your hand. The book is open. You are looking at the book. You are listening to the record. You are hearing my voice. You are learning to speak, to understand, to read and to write English. I am speaking slowly. When I speak slowly, you understand me. When I speak quickly, you don't understand me.
Part 2.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Quite well, thank you.
Now, please answer my questions. Am I the teacher?
Yes, you are.
Are you the student?
Yes, I am.
Am I English?
Yes, you are.
Are you English?
No, I'm not.
Who is the teacher, you or I?
You are.
And who is the student?
I am.
Do I speak English?
Yes, you do.
Am I speaking English now?
Yes, you are.
Do you speak English?
Yes, I do, but only a little.
What is this?
It's a record.
Where is it?
It's on the gramophone.
Is this a book?
Yes, it is.
Is this a book?
No, it isn't. It's a record.
Where are you sitting?
I'm sitting at the table.
What are you listening to?
I'm listening to the record.
Whose voice are you hearing?
I'm hearing your voice.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at my book.
Is the book open or closed?
Open, of course.
What are you learning?
I'm learning English.
Do you understand me when I speak slowly?
Yes, I do.
And when I speak quickly?
No, I don't. Lesson 1. First lesson. My family.
This is my family. My wife, my son, my daughter, and I. I am Mr. Black. My wife is Mrs. Black. I am Mrs. Black's husband. I am a man. My wife is a woman. We have 2 children, a boy and a girl. The boy's name is John. He's 12 years old. The girl's name is Mary. She's still quite young. She's only 8. She's 4 years younger than John, and John is 4 years older than she is. Mary is the youngest in the family, and I am the oldest. John is Mary's brother. Mary is John's sister. John is my son. I am his father. My wife is his mother. Mary is my daughter. I am her father. My wife is her mother. John and Mary are our children. I am their father. My wife is their mother. We are their parents. We love our children. My wife is sitting in an armchair reading a book. I am standing by the window smoking a pipe. Mary is writing a letter. John is kneeling on the floor and playing with his train. The dog and the cat are lying under the table.
Lesson 2. Second lesson. Questions and answers.
Who am I?
You are Mr. Black.
Whose husband am I?
Mrs. Black's husband.
What's my son's name?
His name is John.
What is your name?
My name is Peter Jones.
Have I got one child or two?
You have 2 children.
Is Mary my daughter?
Yes, she is.
How old is she?
She's 8.
What is she doing?
She's writing a letter.
Is she standing or sitting?
She's sitting.
What is John playing with?
He's playing with his train.
Has John any brothers?
No, he hasn't.
Have you any brothers?
Yes, I have.
How many?
1.
Who is smoking a pipe?
You are.
Do you smoke?
No, I don't.
Does your father smoke?
Yes, he does.
Does your mother smoke?
No, she doesn't.
Do women smoke?
Some do and some don't. Lesson 3. Third lesson. Our house.
Many families in London live in flats, but most people live in their own houses in the suburbs. We too have a house in a London suburb. I bought it about 15 years ago, when I got married. Like most of London's suburban houses, it consists of only 2 floors, the ground floor and the first floor. On the ground floor there's the dining room, the lounge or sitting room, the kitchen and the hall. In the hall we see a stand for hats, coats and umbrellas. A staircase leads from the hall to the landing on the first floor. On this floor there are 4 bedrooms, a bathroom and a lavatory. On top of the roof there are 3 chimneys. In front of the house we have a small garden in which we grow flowers, roses, tulips and so on. At the back of the house there's a much larger garden with a lawn and some fruit trees. There's also a vegetable garden where we grow all kinds of vegetables, such as potatoes, cabbages, cauliflowers, onions, and tomatoes. At the side of the house is a garage where I keep my car. The garden is enclosed by a fence with a gate in it.
Lesson 4, fourth lesson. Conversation.
Now, let's have a talk about our house. Can you tell me where we live?
Yes, I can. You live in a house in the suburbs of London.
Quite right. Now tell me, is it a large house or a small one?
Well, it's neither very large nor very small.
When did I buy it?
You bought it about 15 years ago.
Is there a garage?
Yes, there is.
How many rooms are there in the house?
Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 7, including the kitchen.
Are the bedrooms upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs, on the first floor.
Which rooms are on the ground floor?
The dining room, the lounge, and the kitchen.
Have we got a garden?
Yes, you have.
Where do the flowers grow?
In the front garden.
Are there any fruit trees there?
No, there aren't. They're in the back garden.
Have we got many fruit trees?
No, not many, just a few.
Do you like fruit?
Yes, I do, very much. Especially pears and apples.
Lesson 5, fifth lesson. Our sitting room.
Let's have a look at this picture of our sitting room. As you come into the room, you notice a piano with a low music stool in front of it. Next to the piano is a tall bookcase standing against the wall. On the left is a large window. Under the window there's a radiator, but you can't see it because it's behind the settee. On the settee there are 2 cushions. The fireplace is at the other end of the room. On each side of the fireplace there's an armchair. An old lady is sitting in one of the chairs, but nobody's sitting in the other one. It's empty. In the center of the mantelpiece there's a clock, and above it an oval mirror. On the right you can see a standard lamp.
Opposite the fireplace, you can see a small table with an ashtray and some newspapers on it. By the table, there's a small chair. On the extreme right, there's a radiogram. The floor is covered with a beautiful thick carpet. An electric light is hanging from the middle of the ceiling. At night, when it gets dark, we switch on the light and draw the curtains. During the day, the light comes in through the window.
Lesson 6. Sixth lesson. Conversation between teacher and student.
Is there a bookcase in our sitting room?
Yes, there is.
Are there any books in it?
Yes, quite a lot.
How many are there?
I don't know. I haven't counted them.
Where's the window?
On the left of the piano.
What is there under the window?
A radiator.
Can you see it?
No, I can't.
Why not?
Because it's behind the settee.
Is the mirror round or square?
Neither. It's oval.
Is there anything on top of the radiogram?
No, nothing at all.
There's something on the small table, isn't there?
Yes, there's an ashtray.
Isn't there anything else on it?
Yes, there are some newspapers.
Are there any armchairs in the room?
Yes, there are two.
You can see somebody sitting in one of them, can't you?
Yes, an old lady.
Is anybody sitting in the other chair?
No, nobody. There isn't anybody sitting on the settee either.
Do you like our sitting room?
Yes, I do. Very much.
I'm so glad. Everybody does.
Lesson 7. Seventh lesson. Comparisons.
Now, let's compare our sitting room with the Bakers. The Bakers are friends of ours. They live next door to us. Our room is a little larger than theirs, and it has more furniture in it. As you see, there's no wireless set in Mr. Baker's room. There isn't a bookcase either. Mine is in my sitting room, but his is in his study. My wife keeps her music in the music stool, but Mrs. Baker keeps hers in a separate cabinet near the piano. You can also see that theirs is a grand piano, whereas ours is an upright. Both my wife and Mrs. Baker are very fond of music, and both play the piano very well. But my wife doesn't play as well as Mrs. Baker. Mrs. Baker not only plays much better than my wife does, but she's the best pianist in the district. I don't play the piano, but I play the violin.
There's no settee in the Bakers' sitting room, and there are no small chairs. However, they have 3 easy chairs, whereas we have only 2. In their room they have an electric fire, but we, like most English people, have a coal fire. Sometimes we burn logs of wood instead of coal. The Bakers have 2 vases on their mantelpiece, as well as a clock, and over the mantelpiece they've got a beautiful picture painted by a famous artist.
Lesson 8. Eighth lesson. Another talk.
Well, you've learned quite a lot about our sitting room and the baker's. And now I'm going to ask you a few questions about them. Tell me, whose sitting room do you like better, the baker's or ours?
I don't think there's much to choose between the two, but on the whole, I prefer yours.
I'm glad to hear that. Of course, their furniture is more modern than ours. You see, they haven't been married as long as we have, so they bought their furniture more recently than we did. Don't you think that's a very fine picture the bakers have over their mantelpiece?
Yes, I can't help admiring it whenever I look at it. I should think it must be very valuable.
And what do you think of the piano?
I think it's a very fine instrument indeed.
By the way, do you play the piano?
I'm sorry to say I don't.
Does your wife?
Oh, yes, she does. And very well, too.
Lesson 9. Ninth lesson. Visitors.
It's Saturday afternoon. There's a knock at the door. Our neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. White, have arrived. The maid opens the door and lets them in. She shuts the door and shows them into the lounge. We greet them, shake hands with them, and ask them to sit down. A few minutes later, we hear a ring at the door. It's Betty Smith, my wife's niece. She's just arrived from the country, and she's going to stay with us over the weekend. She kisses her aunt, who introduces her to the Whites, and we all sit down. The ladies talk about the weather and the latest fashions. We men discuss politics, business, and the latest news. Presently, the maid brings in the tea on a trolley. A pot of tea, cups and saucers, hot water, a jug of milk, and sugar. Also, sandwiches, bread and butter, jam, and cakes. My wife pours out the tea. I hand it round. My niece passes round the sandwiches and cakes. We all enjoy the tea very much.
Lesson 10. 10th lesson. Afternoon tea.
Good afternoon, Mrs. White. How are you?
Very well indeed, thank you. And how are you?
Quite well, thank you. Won't you sit down? Oh, excuse me, please. I think that's my niece at the door. Hello, Betty, dear. I'm so glad to see you. You do look well. I don't think you've met each other before. Let me introduce you. This is my niece, Miss Smith. Mrs. White, Mr. White.
How do you do?
How do you do?
And now let's have some tea. How do you like your tea, Mrs. White? Strong or weak?
Not too strong, please. And 1 lump of sugar. I like my tea rather sweet, but my husband prefers his without sugar.
Well, what's the news, Mr. White? How's business?
Pretty good, thank you. And how are things with you?
Well, not too good, I'm afraid. And going from bad to worse. In fact, it's the worst year we've had for a long time.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope things will soon improve.
Yes, let's hope for the best. And how's your nephew Richard getting on?
Oh, he's getting on quite well, thank you. He's staying in the country just now with his Uncle William and his cousins.
How long is he going to stay there?
I don't know exactly, but he's having a very pleasant time, and it's doing him a lot of good. So the longer he stays, the better. Lesson 11. 11th lesson. The Browns' dining room.
In the dining room, we have our meals. Breakfast in the morning, lunch in the middle of the day, tea in the afternoon, and supper or dinner in the evening. Here you see Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, who've just arrived from abroad and are having dinner with the Browns. The host, Mr. Brown, is sitting at the head of the table, and the hostess, Mrs. Brown, is at the other end. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson are sitting on either side, facing each other. The dining room table is covered with a white cloth. The maid has laid the table in the usual way and has put the right number of knives, forks, spoons, and glasses for each person. There's also pepper and salt, oil and vinegar, and mustard. On the left of each person is a table napkin and a plate with a roll on it. In front of the host, there's a carving knife and fork. On the sideboard, the Browns usually have a bowl of fruit: apples, pears, plums, cherries, grapes, oranges, or bananas, according to the season. The mistress of the house has just served the soup. After this, there'll be fish, meat or poultry with vegetables, then a sweet, and perhaps cheese and biscuits to finish with.
Lesson 12. 12th lesson. Dinner table talk.
Good evening. I'm so glad you were able to come. Dinner's ready. Let's go into the dining room. Mrs. Thompson, will you sit here on my left? And you, Mr. Thompson, there. How long have you been in London?
Oh, only a few days. Since last Monday, to be exact. And I'm sorry to say we have to return tomorrow week.
Is this your first visit?
It's my wife's first visit, but I've been here several times before. I have to come over at least once a year on business, and I feel quite at home in London.
What do you think of London, Mrs. Thompson?
I beg your pardon, I didn't quite catch what you said.
I was asking what you thought of London.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful place. There always seems to be something interesting to do.
And how do you like our weather?
Well, it's rather changeable, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But on the whole, it's not so bad once you get used to it. Will you have some more chicken?
No, thank you.
What about you, Mr. Thompson?
Yes, please. Just a little. It's delicious.
I'm so glad you like it. And now what sweet will you have, Mrs. Thompson? There's apple tart and cream or chocolate trifle.
Trifle for me, please.
And you, Mr. Thompson?
Trifle for me, too, please.
Lesson 13. 13th lesson. My bedroom.
At night, when I feel tired and sleepy, I go up to my bedroom and switch on the electric light. I take off my shoes, undress, and put on my pajamas. Then I get into bed and switch off the light. After a few minutes, I fall asleep. I sleep the whole night through. Punctually at 7:30 in the morning, the alarm clock rings and wakes me up. I get out of bed, put on my dressing gown and slippers, and go into the bathroom, where I turn on the hot and cold taps. While the water's running into the bath, I wash my face and neck, clean my teeth, and shave. My shaving things are on the shelf above the basin. Then I turn off the taps and have my bath. Sometimes I have a shower. When I've dried myself with a towel, I get dressed. On the dressing table in front of the looking glass, you'll see a hairbrush and comb, a hand mirror, a bottle of scent, and a powder box. These, of course, don't belong to me, but to my wife. In the chest of drawers, I keep clean linen, such as shirts, collars, and handkerchiefs, besides things like socks and ties. The dirty linen is put in a linen basket and sent to the laundry. In the wardrobe, I keep my suits and other clothes, which I hang on coat hangers.
Lesson 14. 14th lesson. Morning and evening.
What time do you get up as a rule?
Generally about 7:30.
Why so early?
Because I usually catch an early train up to town.
When do you get to the office?
Normally about 9 o'clock.
Do you stay in town all day?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't.
What do you usually do in the evenings?
We generally stay at home. Once or twice a week we go to a theatre or to the pictures. We went to the pictures last night and saw a very interesting film. Occasionally we go to a dance.
Do you like dancing?
Yes, very much. Do you dance?
I used to when I was younger, but not very often now. I'm getting too old.
Too old? Nonsense. You don't look more than 50.
As a matter of fact, I'm nearly 60.
Really? You certainly don't look it.
I'm glad to hear it. Are you doing anything special tonight? If not, what about coming with me to my club? You'd get to know quite a lot of interesting people there.
I should love to. But today happens to be our wedding anniversary, and we're going out tonight to celebrate.
Well, my heartiest congratulations.
Thank you very much. I could manage to come along tomorrow night, if that would suit you.
Yes, excellent. Let's make it round about 8 o'clock.
Very well. Thanks.
Lesson 15. 15th lesson. The hotel.
There are plenty of good hotels in London, and you're nearly always sure of finding room in one or other of them. Still, if you don't want to be disappointed, especially during the holiday season, it's better to engage a room beforehand. You'll find London hotels just the same as hotels in all large cities. As a rule, you go into a large entrance hall or lounge, where visitors are constantly coming and going. The porter takes your luggage, and you go to the reception desk to see about your room and get your key. Then the page takes you up to your room in a lift. The people in the office will always help you if you don't know your way about the town. They'll tell you where to go and what to see. They'll book seats for you at the theatre and do all they can to make your stay a pleasant one.
If you want a guide to show you round or an interpreter for a business interview, they'll get you one. If you have to write business letters and can type, they'll provide you with a typewriter. If, on the other hand, you prefer to dictate your letters, they'll get you a shorthand typist. If your wife is going to be with you, she'll find plenty to amuse her. She'll be able to spend her time looking at the shops while you're busy.
Lesson 16. 16th lesson. Booking rooms.
Here we are. This is our hotel, isn't it?
Yes, there's the name. Princess Court Hotel. Shall I look after the luggage, or will you?
Well, if you'll see to the luggage and pay the driver, I'll go in and see about rooms.
All right. Where shall I find you?
I'll wait for you in the hall. Don't be long.
I'll come as soon as I can.
Good morning. Can you let me have a double room with a bathroom? Or if you have 2 single rooms, so much the better.
We're practically full up, but I'll see. How long do you intend to stay?
I expect we shall be here for a week at least, perhaps a fortnight.
Yes, you can have 2 rooms with a bathroom on the first floor.
I hope they're quiet. I hate a noise at night.
I think you'll find they are, sir. They face the courtyard.
How much are they?
45 shillings a night, including breakfast.
All right, we'll take those.
Will you fill up this form, please?
Surname, Christian name, nationality, permanent address, place and date of birth, signature. Is that all right?
Yes, that's all, thank you. And here are your keys. The page will show you up to your rooms, and your luggage will be brought up straight away.
Lesson 17. 17th lesson. At the restaurant.
In all large towns, there are plenty of restaurants, cafes, tea rooms, and inns or public houses. All the large hotels have dining rooms or restaurants, like the one in the picture. Each little party of guests have their own table, and every table, as you see, has its own lamp. Many of the guests are in evening dress, which is usual at fashionable restaurants. At some, it's compulsory.
In the picture, you can see several couples dancing at the far end of the room near the orchestra. One of the waiters is standing near the buffet, where there are cold dishes of various kinds. Another's carrying a tray with a bottle of wine and 2 wine glasses on it. He'll put the bottle of wine into the ice bucket to keep it cool.
Meals in England are much the same as in other countries, with the exception of breakfast. I expect you've heard all about the English breakfast, with its porridge or cereal, bacon and eggs, toast, marmalade, and tea or coffee. Very few people like chocolate or cocoa for breakfast. In the afternoon, about 4 o'clock or past, nearly everybody has tea. The 2 main meals of the day, lunch and dinner, are both more or less alike. Most people have lunch about 1 o'clock and dinner at 7:30 or later.
Lesson 18. 18th lesson. Ordering a meal.
Is this table free, waiter?
I'm sorry, sir. These 2 tables have just been reserved by telephone. But that one over there's free.
What a pity. We wanted to be near the dance floor. Still, it doesn't matter. We'll take it. The menu, please.
Here you are, sir. Will you dine à la carte or take the table d'hôte?
Well, let's see. What do you think, darling?
Oh, I don't want much to eat. I'm not very hungry. I think I'll have some oxtail soup and fried plaice with chips.
I'm rather hungry. I'll start with some hors d'oeuvre.
And to follow?
A grilled steak with baked potatoes and peas.
Will you have anything to drink, sir?
Well, I am rather thirsty. Bring me half a pint of bitter. What about you, darling?
Well, I don't care for beer, but I will have a glass of sherry.
Very good. What sweet would you like?
I'll have a fruit salad.
So will I. And we'll have 2 coffees, please.
Black or white?
White, please. Oh, and 2 liqueur brandies. What a lovely waltz they're playing. Shall we dance?
Yes, I'd love to.
Waiter, the bill, please.
Very good, sir.
Here you are.
Thank you very much, sir.
Lesson 19. 19th lesson. Numerals. Times and dates.
If I want to know the time, I look at my watch. I've got a gold wristwatch with a leather strap. It keeps fairly good time, but occasionally it goes wrong. When it does that, I take it to a watchmaker and have it repaired, cleaned, and regulated. I don't think you'll find it very difficult to tell the time in English. First of all, let's deal with the hours. We say, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and so on. 12 o'clock may refer to midnight or to midday. Then for the quarters, we say, for instance, it's 8:15, 8:30, 8:45. Sometimes people just say 8:15 instead of 8:15, and 8:30 instead of 8:30. We say other times as follows: 5 minutes past 8, or simply 8:05. Similarly, 10 past 8, 20 past 8, 25 past 8, 25 to 9, 20 to 9, 10 to 9, 5 to 9.
Referring to dates, we say, for instance, Henry VIII was born on the 28th day of June, 1491, and died on the 28th of January, 1547. Be careful to pronounce distinctly 1330, 1440, 1550, 1660, and so on. Then learn 100, 101, 276, 1,000, 3,387.
Lesson 20, 20th lesson. Days and months. Asking the time.
Do you know the days of the week?
Yes. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Now, let's assume that today is Wednesday. What day will tomorrow be?
Thursday.
And the day after tomorrow?
Friday.
What day was yesterday?
Tuesday.
And the day before yesterday?
Monday.
As it happens, last Monday was my birthday.
Is that so? Well, many happy returns of the day.
Thank you. And now let's have the names of the months.
Certainly. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December.
Good. Oh, can you tell me the right time, please?
Well, my watch says 2:05, but it's no use relying on it because sometimes it's fast and sometimes it's slow.
Lesson 21, 21st lesson. English money.
If you're going to England, you'll naturally want to know something about English money. I expect you've been used to the decimal system, so English money will probably seem very strange to you at first, but you'll soon get used to it.
There are 3 copper coins, the penny, the halfpenny, and the farthing. Then there's the threepenny bit. The other coins are the sixpence, the shilling, the 2-shilling piece, and the half-crown, which is worth 2 shillings and 6pence, or as we say, 2 and 6. Then there's a 10-shilling note and a pound note in common use. And for larger sums, there are £5 notes, £10 notes, and so on. There's no gold in circulation, so you hardly ever see a sovereign or half-sovereign. You may often hear the term guinea, which stands for 21 shillings, although there's no actual coin of this value.
There are 4 farthings in a penny, 12 pence in a shilling, and 20 shillings in a pound. If the price of a reel of cotton is 4pence, you hand over 4 pennies for it. Similarly, you say 2pence, 3pence, and so on. If a stamp costs 3 halfpence, you hand the clerk a penny and a halfpenny, or 3 halfpennies, and he gives you a 3 halfpenny stamp. Lesson 22, 22nd lesson. At the bank.
Can you change me some money, please?
Certainly. What is it you wish to change?
Here it is. Some French francs, Swiss francs, American dollars, and a few Dutch guilders. You'd better count them.
If you'll wait a moment, I'll find out the rates of exchange. Here we are. Let me see. That'll make £41, 12 shillings and sixpence altogether. How would you like it?
Would you please give me 7 £5 notes, 4 pound notes, and 4 10-shilling notes, and the rest in small change?
Certainly. Here you are. Will that do?
Would you mind giving me the 6pence in coppers? I want to make a phone call, and I haven't any change. Thank you. By the way, can I open an account here?
You'll have to see the manager about that. If you'll kindly go through that door marked private, he'll attend to you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Anderson. I should like to open an account with you.
A deposit or a current account?
Well, I want to be able to pay for things by check.
Then you want a current account. How much money do you want placed to your credit?
Here's £200. I think that ought to last me for some time.
I take it you can supply references?
Certainly.
Right. Here's a checkbook. And when you send a check by post, be careful to cross it. But if you wish to cash a check yourself, you must leave it open.
Lesson 23, 23rd lesson. Postal services.
There are post offices in every town and nearly every village in the country. If you want to post an ordinary letter, a postcard, or a small parcel, you needn't go to the post office. you can drop it into the nearest pillar box. You can recognize these easily in England because they're painted red. If you want to send a telegram, you can either take it to the nearest post office or dictate it over the telephone. Pillar boxes are emptied several times a day. If you want your letter to arrive more quickly than by ordinary post, you can send it by airmail. Letters are delivered to your home or office by a postman, and telegrams by a telegraph boy. Here you can see what the inside of a post office looks like. On one side of the counter, you see several customers. On the other side, the clerks.
One of the people in the picture is buying postage stamps. Another is registering a letter. The third is writing out a cable. If you want to buy stamps, you must go to the right counter. If you go to the wrong one, you'll only waste your time. Ask for a halfpenny stamp, a penny stamp, a 3 halfpenny stamp, a 2penny stamp, a 2penny halfpenny stamp, a 3penny stamp, and so on. If you want to send a parcel, you hand it to the assistant, who weighs it on scales and gives you the necessary stamps. The amount you have to pay depends on the weight of the parcel. In most post offices, and also in many streets, there are public telephone boxes from which you can telephone. All you have to do is lift the receiver, put into the slot the pennies due for the call, and dial the first 3 letters of the exchange you want, followed by the number.
Lesson 24, 24th lesson. At the post office.
Excuse me, can you tell me where the nearest post office is?
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm a stranger here myself. Perhaps that gentleman over there will be able to help you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to trouble you, but can you direct me to the nearest post office?
Yes, it's in the High Street. As a matter of fact, I'm going in the same direction myself. So if you come with me, I'll show you.
That's very kind of you.
There it is. That building over there.
Thanks very much.
Don't mention it.
I want to send a telegram. Where can I get a form?
You'll find some over there. Will you put your name and address on the back? That'll be 3 and 6.
Do you mind telling me where I can get stamps and a registered envelope?
At the next counter.
A 5-shilling book of stamps, please, and a large registered envelope.
Will this size do?
Yes, thank you. That's just right. Would you mind telling me what the postage on this letter will be?
3 by ordinary post, or 6 if you want to register it. Lesson 25, 25th lesson, travelling.
Those who wish to travel either for pleasure or on business have at their disposal various means of transport. There is, for instance, the humble, inexpensive bicycle. Then there's the motorcycle, with which you can travel quickly and cheaply, but for long journeys it's rather tiring. With a motor car, one can travel comfortably for long distances without getting too tired.
Luxurious ships cross seas and oceans from one continent to another. Aeroplanes carry passengers to various parts of the world in almost as many hours as it takes days to do the journey by other means. But most of us still have to use trains. Look at this picture of a busy railway station. A train is standing at one of the platforms ready to leave. Some of the passengers are looking out of the windows, watching the latecomers, who are hurrying along looking for empty seats.
The engine is ready to draw the train out of the station. On another platform, a train has just come in. Some passengers are getting out, others are getting in. Those who've not taken the precaution of getting their tickets beforehand are waiting in queues at the booking office. At the bookstalls, people are choosing books, magazines, or newspapers for the journey. At the cloakroom, others are depositing or withdrawing their luggage. Further along, there are refreshment rooms crowded with people snatching a hasty meal, while those with time to spare are sitting in the waiting rooms.
Lesson 26, 26th lesson, at the station.
Porter, will you see to my luggage, please?
Where for, sir?
I'm going by the 10 o'clock train to Glasgow. Will you have this trunk labelled and put in the luggage van? The suitcase and bag can go on the luggage rack.
Right, sir. What class?
First, try and find me a corner seat in a smoker facing the engine, if you can.
Have you got your ticket yet, sir?
Not yet. Where's the booking office?
Come along with me and I'll show you. Here it is. I'll meet you on the platform.
Which platform is it?
Number 8, over there.
One first to Glasgow, please.
Single or return?
Single. Do I have to change anywhere?
No, no change. It's a through train.
Thank you.
Here you are, sir. I'll find you a corner seat next to the corridor. Your carriage is near the dining car, and you can order lunch when the attendant comes along.
What time do we get to Glasgow?
You're due to arrive at 6:15.
Thank you. Here you are.
Thank you, sir. I hope you'll have a comfortable journey.
Well, I've still got a few minutes to spare, so I'll go and get myself a novel or a detective story to while away the time during the journey.
Mind you don't miss the train, sir.
That's all right. The train doesn't leave for another 10 minutes, and it won't take me more than 5 minutes to get a book.
Lesson 27. 27th lesson. Travelling by sea and air.
Last Wednesday week, I went down to Southampton Docks to see my partner off to New York on one of our largest liners. What colossal ships these steamers are when you see them from the landing stage alongside the quay. I had a pass, so I went on board and had a look round. From the top deck, I could see the huge cranes lifting the cargo and depositing it in the holds. I saw members of the crew carrying out their duties in various parts of the ship, while the captain watched the operations and gave his orders from the bridge. Then the siren sounded, and the visitors made for the gangways. Finally, the ship began to move off, and the passengers, leaning over the rails, waved goodbye to their friends standing below amongst the crowd. Slowly she left the harbor, passing beyond the pier, and gradually disappeared in the distance. A few days later, I myself had to go to Paris. The journey was urgent, and I went by air. I went to the airport by a special bus provided by the company. On the airfield, we saw a large plane waiting for us. We climbed into it, and at exactly 12 o'clock it took off. Very soon, our magic carpet reached the sea, and shortly afterwards we saw the French coast. It wasn't long before we arrived at our destination. Our pilot made a perfect landing, and we got out of the plane.
Lesson 28. 28th lesson. On the boat.
This way for the Dover boat. Have your passports ready, please. Pass up the gangway. First class on the right, second class on the left.
Here we are. Would you like to stay up on deck or go down below?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not much of a sailor.
Oh, you won't be seasick today. The sea's perfectly calm. We're sure to have a good crossing. I'll get a couple of deck chairs up here in the sun.
Oh, well, I'll risk it. But if the worst comes to the worst, don't blame me.
Do you travel much?
Not more than I can help by sea. I've crossed the Channel once before, but frankly, I did not enjoy it.
Why don't you fly across?
I think I shall one of these days. It couldn't possibly be worse than a really bad sea crossing. It's very much quicker anyhow.
I can see the English coast already, can you?
Yes, just.
Well, I suppose we'd better get ready for landing. I say, you haven't got anything dutiable, have you? If you have, you'd better declare it. Whatever you do, don't try to bribe a customs officer, or you'll get into trouble.
I don't think I'm quite as foolish as that. As a matter of fact, I don't think I have anything to declare. Still, thanks all the same.
Lesson 29. 29th lesson. A street in London.
We're now in Oxford Circus, halfway along Oxford Street, one of the busiest streets in the West End of London. And that street over there is Regent Street, famous all over the world for its splendid shops. Near one of the street corners you can see an entrance to the subway leading to the Underground Railway, or Tube as we call it. On both sides of the street there are shops, banks and restaurants. In the roadway there's a constant stream of cars, taxis, buses and lorries. In some parts of London there are trolley buses and trams as well. The noise is deafening, but one soon gets used to it. The pavements are crowded with people, and it's dangerous to attempt to cross the road until the traffic is stopped, either by a policeman on point duty or by the red traffic lights. In any case, before crossing the road, take care to look to your right, and when you reach the middle of the road, look to your left. At night, the streets are lit by electricity, or in some districts by gas. You can see the lamp posts and standards on the pavements and on the islands in the middle of the road. The main streets are flooded with light from the brilliant shop windows and the illuminated signs and advertisements, so that after dark, everything looks as bright as in broad daylight.
Lesson 30. 30th lesson. Asking the way.
Excuse me, can you tell me the way to Trafalgar Square?
Certainly. Go down Regent Street to Piccadilly Circus, and then go down the Haymarket. Turn to the left at the bottom, and in less than a minute you'll be in Trafalgar Square.
Thank you very much. How far is it from here?
If you walk, it'll take you 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour.
Is there a bus?
There's sure to be. But you'd better ask the policeman over there. He'll give you all the information you want.
Thank you. Excuse me, officer. Is there a bus from here to Trafalgar Square?
Yes, sir. Any bus will take you. There's a bus stop just over there. Ask the conductor to put you down at Trafalgar Square.
Thank you. Does this bus go to Trafalgar Square?
Yes, sir. Come along. Hurry up. No room on top. Inside only. No standing on the platform. Pass down the bus, please. Sorry. Full up. Sorry, sir, you can't smoke inside. You'll have to wait until there's room upstairs. Fares, please.
Trafalgar Square, please. And will you tell me when we get there?
Trafalgar Square. This is where you get off, sir.
Thank you.
Lesson 31. 31st lesson. A visit to London.
If you can stay only a few days in London, you won't have much time for your sightseeing. And how to spend your time to the best advantage is rather a problem. If I were you, I should make up my mind beforehand. It all depends on your tastes. You may, for instance, be interested in shops, or in art galleries, or in museums. Or you might prefer to start with the principal historical buildings and monuments. In that case, you might begin in the West End and see the Houses of Parliament, Westminster Abbey, Whitehall, and Nelson's Column. From there, you could go along the Mall to Buckingham Palace and have a look at Queen Victoria's Memorial, facing the palace. Then stroll up Constitution Hill to Hyde Park Corner and take a walk through the park and Kensington Gardens to the Albert Memorial, which faces the Albert Hall. That's really more than enough for one day, but still, if you want to see more, you might get on top of a bus going towards the city. The bus goes along Piccadilly to Piccadilly Circus and Charing Cross, then along the Strand and Fleet Street to Ludgate Circus. There, you might as well get off and walk up to St. Paul's Cathedral. After that, you could go further east, to the heart of the city, and see the Bank, the Mansion House, and the Royal Exchange. And then, if you had time and weren't too tired, you could go to the East End and see the Tower of London, Tower Bridge over the Thames, the Mint, and the Monument.
Lesson 32. 32nd lesson. Sightseeing.
Is it possible to see anything of London in 1 or 2 days?
Well, yes, but of course not half enough.
What do you think I ought to see first?
Well, if you're interested in churches and historical places, you should go to Westminster Abbey, the Houses of Parliament, St. Paul's, and the Tower. Do you like art galleries?
Rather.
Then why not go to the National Gallery and the Tate?
I'm told one ought to see the British Museum. Do you think I shall have time for that?
Well, you might. But if I were you, I should leave that for some other day. You could spend a whole day there. It's much too big to be seen in an hour or so.
I suppose it is. What about going to the zoo?
That's not a bad idea. You could spend a couple of hours there comfortably, or even a whole afternoon, watching the wild animals, birds, and reptiles. You could have tea there, too.
I'll do that, then. How do I get there?
Let me see. Where are we? Oh, there's the BBC. I think your best way from here is to walk across Regent's Park.
Is it much of a walk?
Oh, no. A quarter of an hour or so. But if you're in a hurry, why not take a taxi?
I think I will. Ah, here's one coming. Taxi. The zoo, please.
Lesson 33. 33rd lesson. The big stores.
I went into one of the big London stores today and enjoyed myself very much, just wandering from one department to another, looking at the various articles and the counters. I thought the assistants were very helpful. There must have been some hundreds of salesmen and saleswomen and dozens of different departments, including china, haberdashery, confectionery, hardware, and even provisions. I went from one department to another, from umbrellas to gloves, from fancy goods to lace, up and down in lifts and on escalators. As I was going through the book department, I was surprised to meet an old friend of mine whom I hadn't seen for years. She's been living abroad, and she's just come back to England for a short holiday. We went up to the restaurant and had lunch together. Of course, we talked and talked. She told me that she was married and that she'd brought her eldest boy to England with her. He was going to school here and would live with his grandmother, who's a widow. His grandfather died quite recently. We didn't finish lunch until 2:30. Then we did some shopping together. I helped her to buy some presents for her children. I can't tell you how glad we were to see each other again. We used to be very great friends before she went to live abroad. I hadn't seen her for, 10 or 12 years at least.
Lesson 34. 34th lesson. Shopping.
Excuse me. How do I get to the glove department?
Over there on the left, madam. Just past the ribbon counter.
Is this the right counter for gloves?
Yes, madam. What sort of gloves do you require? Kid, suede, chamois?
Well, let me see some of each.
Certainly, madam. What size do you take?
6 1/4, I believe. But you'd better measure my hand to make sure.
I think a 6 is your size. How do you like these? I can recommend them. They're very reliable.
How much are they?
19 and 11, madam.
Very well, I'll take them. And now, how do I get to the shoe department?
Come this way, please, and I'll show you. Just over there, beyond the millinery department.
What kind of shoe did you want, madam? Calf, glacé, suede?
I want a strong walking shoe with a low heel. Perhaps calf would be best. I like court shoes, but of course high heels aren't suitable for country wear. As you see, I have rather small feet.
Here's a pair about your size. Try them on. How do they feel?
They're fairly comfortable, but they're a bit tight across the toes. I suppose they'll give a little.
Yes, they'll stretch with wearing.
Very well, then. And now let's see, what else did I want? Oh, yes, some silk stockings, shoe polish, pair of scissors, and some safety pins.
Lesson 35. 35th lesson. The tailor and the dressmaker.
This morning I've been to my tailor's to order a new suit, coat, waistcoat and trousers. I should have liked to order a new overcoat as well, as my old one is nearly worn out, but just now I can't afford it. I shall have to wait till next year for that, but I might get a raincoat later on. My tailor always has an excellent stock of materials to choose from, and I think I've chosen what will be the most suitable for my purpose. I've had my measurements taken, and I'm going again in a fortnight's time for the first fitting. After I've tried the suit on, the tailor will probably find it necessary to make a few alterations, and he'll mark the places for pockets, buttons and buttonholes. Then he'll ask me to return later on for a final fitting, just to make sure that the suit fits really well. When the suit's ready, I shall pay for it and get a receipt. My wife has also been buying some new clothes this week. She's bought herself a fur coat and a ready-made suit, that's to say, a coat and skirt. She's been trying to find a silk blouse to match, so far without success. But when she went to the milliner's, she did succeed in getting just the right hat in the very latest fashion, or so she says. It would seem that the one she bought 3 weeks ago is already out of date.
Lesson 36. 36th lesson. Ordering new clothes.
Good morning. I should like to order a lounge suit. What have you got in the way of materials? I want something for the autumn. Not too heavy and not too light.
How do you like this pattern, sir?
It's much too light in color for the autumn. I'd rather have something darker and a bit heavier.
What about this, then?
Yes, that's better. How much is it?
This is an exceptionally good quality cloth, very soft and guaranteed pure wool. A suit of this will cost you 25 guineas.
I'm afraid that's really more than I wanted to pay. I should have liked something cheaper, but still, I expect it's worth it.
Very good, sir. If you'll take off your coat, I'll take your measurements. That's all. Thank you. Can you call in tomorrow fortnight for a fitting?
That'll be a Wednesday, won't it? Yes, that'll suit me. I'll call in between 2 and 3.
At the dress shop.
I should like to try on one of these dresses.
Please come with me to the fitting room. This is a model gown and quite the latest style.
I like the style, but I don't care for the colour, and it's a bit large, too.
What about this one? We have this model in several sizes and colours. Pale green, dark brown, black.
Let me see the black one in my size. Yes, that's better. But isn't the skirt rather long?
Yes, we'll shorten that for you an inch or two, and the waist will have to be taken in a little as well, but you can leave all that to us.
Lesson 37. 37th lesson. At the tobacconist's.
If anybody were to ask me which shop windows I found the most interesting, I should find it very hard to answer. My wife, I know, would be all in favour of the drapers, the milliners, and the jewellers. My eldest son would be all for the sports shops, with their golf clubs, tennis rackets, cricket bats, and footballs. The children would vote for the toy shops. And as for me, well, I must confess to a weakness for the tobacconist's window. It's not that I smoke a lot, but there's something fascinating about the neat little piles of different coloured tobaccos, the beautifully polished briar pipes, the attractive boxes of cigars and cigarettes. If you smoke a pipe, you have the choice of dozens of excellent brands of pipe tobacco. If you like cigars, then you can get them at any price you care to pay. And if you prefer cigarettes, you can buy Virginia, Turkish, or Egyptian, whichever you like. Virginia cigarettes are, of course, those made of American tobacco.
Matches are good and cheap, but most people nowadays use a lighter. In the tobacconist's window, you'll also find tobacco pouches and cigarette cases, holders, and all that sort of thing. Many tobacconists are at the same time newsagents, stationers, and booksellers, so that you can buy books, magazines, newspapers, picture postcards, and other stationery, such as writing pads, notepaper, blotting paper, envelopes, ink, fountain pens, pencils, and so on. Very often you can buy sweets and chocolates there as well.
Lesson 38. 38th lesson. Buying cigarettes.
Good afternoon. I should like some cigarettes, please.
What kind would you like? Virginia, Egyptian, or Turkish?
Well, I think I should like to try some of each, and then I can decide which I like best.
How many would you want?
I really don't know. Say, a packet of 20 Virginia and a box of 25 of each of the others. Which brand do you recommend?
If I were you, I should try these. They're not very expensive, and yet of quite good quality. Rather mild, and they won't hurt your throat.
All right, I'll take those. And I'd like some matches, too.
How many boxes?
Oh, half a dozen.
Certainly. What about some pipe tobacco? You can have it by the ounce, or in a tin.
No, thank you.
Well, may I suggest a good Havana cigar?
Well, I do enjoy a good cigar now and again, but aren't they rather expensive?
We've got them at various prices. This one, for instance, is quite good and costs only 4 9/9.
All right, I'll try it. Let me have 5, please. Oh, I nearly forgot. I should like a few flints for my lighter. And now add it all up and tell me how much I owe you.
Let me see. That'll be 39 6 altogether.
Here you are. Would you mind wrapping them up? Thank you.
Lesson 39, 39th lesson. The barber and the hairdresser.
The hairdresser is a most important member of the community. Everybody, male and female, old and young, requires his attention regularly. Men must have their hair cut. If they have beards or moustaches, they must have them trimmed. Those who don't shave themselves must be shaved by the barber. Women must have their hair cut or waved. Here you see the inside of a hairdresser's shop. The proprietor's busy cutting somebody's hair. Someone else is being shaved. There are several customers sitting on the settee, waiting their turn. One of them's reading a newspaper. Another customer's just about to leave the shop. He's just had a haircut and a shampoo as well. An assistant is brushing his overcoat. He will expect a tip, of course. I always shave myself with a safety razor. My brother shaves with an electric razor. Most people shave every day, but when we're lazy, we only shave every other day. I suppose you shave yourself too, don't you? I always think a man ought to shave himself. Personally, I don't like having my cheeks and chin covered with lather by somebody else. Besides, it's much more convenient, and incidentally cheaper, to shave oneself at home than to have to waste time going to the barber's.
Lesson 40, 40th lesson. I go to the barber's.
Good afternoon, sir. What can I do for you?
Haircut and shave, please. I should also like a manicure.
Take a seat, please. You won't have to wait long. You're next, sir. A manicurist will soon be free. In the meantime, I'll cut your hair. Do you want it short or just trimmed?
Not too short.
Very good, sir. Ah, here's the manicurist.
May I have your hand, please? Thank you. You've broken the nail on this finger rather badly.
Yes, I have, haven't I? Be careful with my right thumb. It's a bit painful.
Certainly.
How's that, sir?
Just right, thank you.
Your hair's rather dry, sir, and it's getting a bit thin on top, too. A shampoo will do it a lot of good.
Very well.
And now for the shave.
Yes, but be careful. My skin's rather tender.
You needn't worry, sir. I've only once cut a customer. He suddenly jerked his head and I cut his chin. There was a little blood, but nothing to speak of. I soon stopped the bleeding. There you are, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, you have a ladies' department here, haven't you? My wife wants a perm. Could I fix an appointment for her tomorrow at 3 o'clock, say?
Just a minute. I'll find out. Yes, that'll be quite all right.
And now, how much do I owe you?
That'll be 6 and 6 altogether.
Here's 7 and 6. You can keep the change.
Thank you, sir.
Lesson 41. 41st lesson. The seasons.
The year is divided into 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn and winter. In spring, nature awakens from her long winter sleep. The trees are filled with new life, the earth is warmed by the rays of the sun, and the weather gets gradually milder. The fields and meadows are covered with fresh green grass. The woods and forests are filled with the songs of the birds. The sky is blue and cloudless. At night, millions of stars shine in the darkness.
When summer comes, the weather gets warmer still, and sometimes it's very hot. It's the farmer's busy season. He works in his fields from morning till night. The grass must be cut, and the hay must be made while the dry weather lasts. Sometimes the skies are overcast with heavy clouds. There are storms with thunder, lightning and hail.
Autumn brings with it the harvest time, when the crops are gathered in and the fruit is picked in the orchards. The days get shorter and the nights longer. The woods turn yellow and brown. Leaves begin to fall from the trees, and the ground is covered with them. The skies are grey, and very often it rains.
When winter comes, we're obliged to spend more time indoors, because out of doors it's cold. We may get fog, sleet and frost. Ponds, lakes, rivers and streams are frozen, and the roads are sometimes covered with slippery ice or deep snow. The trees are bare. Bitter north winds have stripped them of all their leaves.
Lesson 42. 42nd lesson. Sports and games.
What would you say were the most popular games in England today?
Well, I suppose football, that is soccer or rugger, and cricket.
What are the other outdoor games?
Oh, there's tennis, hockey, golf, and so on. Tennis is played all the year round, on hard courts or grass courts in summer, and on hard or covered courts in winter.
What about horse racing?
I should say that that is one of the most popular sports in Great Britain. Then there are, of course, walking races, running, swimming, and boxing.
I've been told that there are no winter sports in England.
Well, you see, the English winter isn't very severe as a rule, and we don't often have the chance of skiing, skating, or tobogganing. But winter's the great time for hunting, provided the ground is not too hard.
Is there any golf to be had near London?
Oh, yes, any amount. There are dozens of good golf links within an hour or so of London. You ought to join a golf club if you're keen on the game.
I think I shall if I get the chance. What about indoor games?
Well, there's chess, billiards, cards, table tennis. By the way, do you play billiards?
Well, I do, but of course I'm not a professional or a champion. Just an ordinary amateur, and not a very good one at that.
Lesson 43, 43rd lesson, Part 1, A Holiday in the Country.
If you want to have a really quiet and healthy holiday, you must go and stay on a farm. Last year we went to my brother-in-law's farm in Devonshire and enjoyed ourselves immensely. But the farmer's life, though healthy, is by no means an easy one. There's always plenty to do. He must look after his stables and his horses. He must milk the cows and clean the cowsheds. Then he has to take great care of the young animals, the lambs and the calves. Goats and sheep must be fed, and pigs fattened. You can see the pigs in their sty, and the ewes with their lambs in the sheep pen. Then somebody has to go round the fowl houses to collect the eggs. Cocks and hens, ducks and drakes, turkeys and geese must all be fed and fattened for the market. We all like to have a roast turkey, or at least a goose, for Christmas, don't we? When we stay at my brother-in-law's, we have to work very hard, but we don't mind. We really enjoy it, particularly if the weather's nice. In the old days, most of the work on a farm was done by hand and with the aid of horses. But now things are altogether different. Ploughing is done with a tractor, and eggs are taken to market in motor vans. Cows are milked by electricity, and chickens are bred in incubators. So you see, a farmer's life is not what it used to be.
Part 2, Work on the Farm.
What time do you have to get up when you're staying at the farm?
About 6 o'clock.
Why must you get up so early?
Well, there's such a lot to be done.
Are you going to the country next summer?
I expect so.
It must be a delightful change for you after living all the year in town.
Yes, it is. Life in the country is so peaceful. It's so nice to feel that you don't have to rush for a train every morning.
Don't you have to work very hard on a farm?
We can if we want to, but of course we're not obliged to. We just do as we please. There's always work that mustn't be neglected, so we do what we can to help.
Well, I've never spent a holiday on a farm, so I don't know what it's like.
Haven't you really? Oh, you ought to. Come with us next year. You needn't be afraid that you'll have to work too hard.
I'd love to, but are you sure I shan't be in the way?
Of course you won't. And I'm sure you'd enjoy a week or two in the open air. Personally, I've always wanted to be a farmer.
Have you really? But it's not a very profitable way of earning one's living, is it?
Oh, I don't know. I think you can find rich men and poor just as much in farming as in any other occupation.
Lesson 44. 44th lesson. Part 1. At the seaside.
If you're going to stay in England for some time, you ought to spend at least a week at the seaside. If you can stay longer, so much the better. You ought to have no difficulty in finding a suitable hotel or boarding house. The picture shows you what an English seaside place is like. You should examine it carefully, and you oughtn't to be satisfied until you know all about it. You can see several people in bathing suits. One of the bathers is just running in from the sea to his tent. He ought to be very healthy and strong if he bathes every day, oughtn't he? When we were children, we used to enjoy playing on the beach, making castles and forts and channels in the sand. I expect you did the same when you were young, because it's really one of the most delightful holidays for children. We used to love playing about on the sand and paddling in the water and getting splashed by the waves. Sometimes we'd get our clothes wet, and Nurse would get very cross and tell us we oughtn't to have gone so far into the water. When you're tired of London, go down to the sea for a week or a fortnight. You can walk up and down the front, listen to the band on the pier, and do more or less anything you please. If you wish to bathe, you can hire a hut or a tent. A swim now and then, or better still, every day, will do you a lot of good. Take your car with you, if you've got one. Choose a good hotel, and you're sure to spend a thoroughly enjoyable time.
Part 2. Planning a holiday.
I say, what are you and your sister going to do for your holiday this year?
Well, I don't know. I should like to take my sister for a tour abroad, but then she can't very well leave her children. What are you doing?
We shall go to the sea, I expect, for part of the time anyhow. Then my wife and I may go off alone for a week or so in the car.
Leaving the rest of the family behind, I suppose.
Oh, yes. They'll be quite safe with their nurse. And besides, they're ever so much happier playing about on the sands than spending long days in the car.
Where do you go as a rule?
We've tried many seaside places on the east and south coasts. On the whole, I think we prefer the south. However, it really doesn't seem to matter very much as long as the youngsters get a good sandy beach.
What do you do? Take rooms or stay at a hotel or what?
We've done both, and this year we're taking a furnished house. Why don't you make up your mind to join us? Find a house nearby and make a large party. It'll be great fun.
For my own part, I should love it. I'll talk it over with my sister and see what she thinks about it.
Do, and let me know as soon as you can.
Right, I will.
Lesson 45, 45th lesson, Part 1, Motoring.
If you're thinking of taking your car to England, you should be familiar with the vocabulary of motoring, and you should know something about motoring regulations in England. For instance, when driving, we keep to the left-hand side of the road, and we overtake on the right. We have a speed limit of 30 miles an hour in towns and built-up areas, so be careful not to exceed it. And remember to keep an eye on the traffic lights. If the green light's showing, it means you can go on. But when the red light appears, you must stop at once. Let's have a look at the car in the picture. It's a 6-cylinder, 20-horsepower saloon. There's a compartment at the back for luggage, the spare wheel, the tools, and the jack. The petrol tank holds 14 gallons, and the car does about 18 miles to the gallon. Now learn the names of the various parts: chassis, bonnet, body, wheels, tires, radiator, engine, steering wheel. The windscreen's fitted with windscreen wipers. On the dashboard are the speedometer, a clock, the petrol gauge, starter, and so on. The clutch, the foot brake, and the accelerator are at the driver's feet. The gear lever and the handbrake are within reach of his hand. The driver has just drawn up at a garage. He's been having trouble with the engine. It's been misfiring and pulling badly.
Part 2, Trouble with the car.
I'd like you to have a look at my car. I can't tell you exactly what's the matter with it, but it's been giving me quite a lot of trouble. I've nearly run the battery down trying to start the engine with the self-starter, and in the end I had to use the starting handle. I've cleaned and tested the plugs, and the carburetor seems to be in order. Would you try and find out what's wrong?
Certainly. Just park the car over there and I'll get the mechanic to look over it. If you'll come back in about an hour, we'll let you know the result.
Well, have you traced the fault?
Yes, it's nothing serious. The pipe leading from the pump's leaking, but we can soon fix you a new one.
Good. And at the same time, will you please have the battery charged and the oil changed, and have the car greased and oiled? Also have the puncture in the tire on the spare wheel mended, and you might check the tire pressures while you're about it. Then the brakes are rather slack, so you'd better test and adjust them. The near front wing and the bumper need straightening too. They got damaged when the car skidded on a wet road and hit a lamppost. Oh, and the rear light wants a new bulb. In fact, give the car a thorough overhaul and let me know when it's ready.
Lesson 46, 46th lesson, Part 1, Commerce and Industry.
Great Britain is one of the most important commercial and trading centres in the world. Britain buys more goods than she sells. Her imports exceed her exports. Not being a great agricultural country, England has to obtain her food supplies largely from abroad. She also has to import many raw materials, such as wool from Australia, timber from Sweden and Finland, cotton, petroleum and tobacco from the United States. Wine and fruit are imported from France, Italy, Spain and the Dominions. Dairy produce from Denmark and Holland and so on. One of the most extensive industries in England is the textile industry. Immense quantities of cotton and woolen goods and artificial silk are produced and exported. English leather goods are also in great demand in other countries. Great Britain is noted for its coal mines and for iron and steel goods, and it supplies many countries with certain classes of machinery. Another leading industry in this country is shipbuilding. The motor industry is also very flourishing.
Part 2, a business interview.
I should like to speak to Mr. Gray if he's not engaged.
Have you an appointment?
No, but here's my card. If you'll be kind enough to take it in, I'm sure he'll see me.
He's on the phone just now. Would you mind waiting a few minutes? Come this way, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bryan. Take a seat, please. What can I do for you?
Well, as a matter of fact, I have a proposition to put before you. I think you know my firm, Messrs. Macmillan and Company Limited of Adelaide, South Australia.
Oh, yes, I know the name very well. But I've never had the pleasure of doing any business with you.
No. Well, my company has a big distributing business with branches all over Australia and New Zealand. We want to get into touch with a good shipping firm in London, such as yours. The idea being that you should act as our agents and handle all our business on this side.
And what about terms of payment and the other essential conditions?
Well, we propose to allow you a 2.5% commission on all business transacted. No doubt we shall come to an understanding on that point. You would have to attend to the shipment of all goods and arrange for the prices to include CIF or in some cases FOB. We're accustomed to paying by bills at 3 months. What do you think about it?
Well, I think some such arrangement would suit us very well. But I can't enter into an agreement or make a definite decision without discussing the matter with my partner. I'll just give him a ring. Will you get me Central 5510, please? Hello, is that you, Knight? I say, I've just had a promising proposition put before me, and I should like to have a chat with you about it. Can you come round to the office straight away? What's that? I can't hear you very well. You'll be round in about 5 minutes. Good. Lesson 47, 47th lesson, Part 1. Doctor, Dentist and Chemist.
If you have toothache, you should go to your dentist. He'll examine your teeth, and if the aching tooth is not too far gone, he'll stop it. If it's too bad, he'll take it out.
If you don't feel well, you should consult a doctor. If you feel too ill to go to the doctor's, you'll have to send for him. He'll ask you to describe to him the symptoms of your illness. Then he'll feel your pulse, look at your tongue, and examine you thoroughly. Finally, he'll prescribe the treatment and write out a prescription.
Doctors' prescriptions are made up by a chemist. At chemist shops, you can also get patent medicines of all kinds. Lotions, tonics, cough mixtures, baby foods, aspirin, pills, ointment, bandages, adhesive plaster, and so on. You can buy razors and razor blades, vacuum flasks, hot water bottles, sponges, toothbrushes and toothpastes, powder puffs, lipsticks, shaving soap and shaving brushes, and 101 other things.
If you're interested in photography, you can also get cameras and films at most chemists. They'll develop and print your films for you too. Some chemists are also qualified opticians, and if your eyesight's faulty, they'll test your eyes and prescribe glasses for you.
Part 2. A visit to the doctor.
Well, what's the matter with you, Mr. Walker?
You'd better ask me what is not the matter with me, Doctor. I seem to be suffering from all the illnesses imaginable. Insomnia, headaches, backache, indigestion, constipation, and pains in the stomach. To make things still worse, I've caught a cold. I've got a sore throat, and I'm constantly sneezing and coughing. To crown it all, I had an accident the other day, hurt my right shoulder, leg, and knee, and nearly broke my neck. If I take a long walk, I get short of breath. In fact, I feel more dead than alive.
I'm sorry to hear that. Anyhow, I hope things aren't as bad as you imagine. Let me examine you. Your heart, chest, and lungs seem to be all right. Now, open your mouth and show me your tongue. Now, breathe in deeply through the nose. There doesn't seem to be anything radically wrong with you, but it's quite clear that you're run down. And if you don't take care of yourself, you may have a nervous breakdown and have to go to hospital. I advise you, first of all, to stop worrying. Take a long rest. Have regular meals. Keep to a diet of salads and fruit and very little meat. Keep off alcohol. If possible, give up smoking, at least for a time. Have this tonic made up and take 2 tablespoonfuls 3 times a day before meals. If you do this, I can promise you full recovery within 2 or 3 months.
And if I don't, Doctor?
Then you'd better make your will, if you haven't yet done so.
I see. Well, thank you, Doctor. I shall have to think it over and decide which is the lesser evil, to follow your advice or prepare for a better world. Lesson 48. 48th lesson, Part 1. Radio and Television.
Of all the discoveries ever made by man, radio or wireless is one of the most wonderful. By means of wireless, you can speak to a man on the other side of the world. Seated comfortably in your own home, you can hear music or talks broadcast thousands of miles away from you. Talks on national and international affairs, on science, history, and other educational subjects. I listen to the wireless almost every evening. Mine is an 8-valve set with an outdoor aerial, which gives splendid results. It has medium, long and short wavelengths, and it's quite simple to manipulate. All I have to do is to turn a knob or push a button to tune in to the station I require. I use my set a good deal for keeping up my foreign languages. I find it a very useful addition to my Linguaphone course. For English, I tune to England, for French to France, for Dutch to Holland, for German to Germany or Austria, for Russian to Russia, for Spanish to Spain, and for Italian to Italy. More marvelous even than radio is television, which enables us not only to listen to talks, plays and concerts, but also to see what's going on. Who knows what the future may bring? It's possible that some clever scientist will invent an apparatus which will enable us to read other people's thoughts. Should that happen, some people might feel quite uncomfortable. Part 2. Broadcast Programs.
Well, how's your set going?
Oh, not too badly, though I've had some difficulty lately in getting good reception from the more distant stations.
Yes, I've noticed quite a lot of interference on my own set, too. I suppose it's the weather.
Of course, mine's rather an old-fashioned model compared to yours. By the way, did you hear Carmen the other night?
Yes, I did. Personally, I'm not very keen on opera, but my wife is, and Carmen happens to be one of her favorites, so I didn't like to suggest switching to another station. Fortunately for me, it was the translated version. I'm not good at languages, you know.
What kind of program do you like best, then?
Oh, I like a straight play. I find some of the talks very interesting, too, and I never miss the sporting events. I got most excited over the international rugger match last Saturday. You listen to the English stations a good deal, don't you?
Yes, I like their programs very much, and I understand nearly everything. With all the practice in ear training I've had, English pronunciation and intonation hold no terrors for me now. And if a speaker uses a word I'm not familiar with, the context usually gives the clue to the meaning.
You're lucky. You know English. I wish I had your gift for languages.
Well, I don't think I should call it a gift. Anyone who's prepared to take a little trouble can do the same. Where there's a will, there's a way, you know.
Lesson 49, 49th lesson, Part 1, Theatres, Music Halls and Cinemas.
Theatres are very much the same in London as anywhere else. The chief theatres, music halls and cinemas are in the West End. If you're staying in London for a few days, you'll have no difficulty whatever in finding somewhere to spend an enjoyable evening. You'll find opera, ballet, comedy, drama, revue, musical comedy and variety. Films are shown in the cinemas during the greater part of the day.
The best seats at theatres are those in the stalls, the circle and the upper circle. Then comes the pit, and last of all the gallery, where the seats are cheapest. Boxes, of course, are the most expensive. Most theatres and music halls have good orchestras with popular conductors. You ought to make a point of going to the opera at least once during the season, if you can. There you can get the best of everything. An excellent orchestra, famous conductors, celebrated singers, and a well-dressed audience. But of course, if you're not fond of music and singing, opera won't interest you.
At the West End theatres, you can see most of the famous English actors and actresses. As a rule, the plays are magnificently staged, costumes, dresses, scenery, everything being done on the most lavish scale. Choose a good play and you'll enjoy yourself thoroughly from the moment the curtain goes up to the end of the last act. Get your seat beforehand, either at the box office of the theatre itself or at one of the agencies. When you go to a theatre, you'll probably want to sit as near to the stage as possible. But if you're at a cinema, you may prefer to sit some distance from the screen. In fact, I would say the further away, the better.
Part 2, At the Theatre.
Have you got any seats for tomorrow?
Matinee or evening performance?
Matinee, please. I want 2 stalls if you've got them.
Yes, you can have, 2 in the middle of row F.
That'll do very well, thank you. How much is that?
They're 13 and 6 each. That makes 27 shillings.
Stall, sir. Stalls on the right. Gentlemen's cloakroom this way. Ladies' cloakroom on the first landing. Show your tickets to the attendant inside the theatre. She'll show you to your seats and let you have a programme.
May I see your tickets, please? Row F, 12 and 13. This way, please. Would you like a programme?
Yes, please.
Shall I bring you some tea, sir? The play isn't over till 5:30.
When do you serve tea?
After the second act. There's an interval of 15 minutes.
Then I think we might as well have some. Well, what did you think of the play?
I enjoyed every minute of it. What did you think of it?
I thought it was splendid. I haven't laughed so much for a long time.
Neither have I. It was extremely good.
Yes, wasn't it? I thought the acting was excellent.
So did I. The whole thing was first-rate from beginning to end. Lesson 50, 50th lesson. A few words about English literature.
The great wealth of English literature makes it impossible to deal with the subject in any detail within the scope of one short lesson. We must therefore confine ourselves to only a few of the outstanding writers. Who has not heard, for instance, of William Shakespeare, one of the greatest dramatists of all time? He's famous for his comedies, such as Twelfth Night, As You Like It, and The Taming of the Shrew, and equally famous for his magnificent tragedies, such as Macbeth, Hamlet, and Othello. Shakespeare lived in the reign of Queen Elizabeth, which was a great age for English literature.
Of later plays, there's She Stoops to Conquer by Oliver Goldsmith, and The School for Scandal by Richard Sheridan. Then, coming to the present day, we have the brilliant dramas of the Irish author Bernard Shaw. Possibly his best-known plays are Caesar and Cleopatra, Man and Superman, Back to Methuselah, and St. Joan.
The works of English novelists have been translated into so many languages that millions of people who know no English are nevertheless familiar with English writings. Yet it's only those who are able to read these novels in the original who can really appreciate such masterpieces as Waverley and Ivanhoe by Walter Scott, or Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, and The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens.
English poetry covers such a wide field that we can do little more than enumerate a few names. Chaucer is well known for his Canterbury Tales, Milton for his two famous epics, Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained, Pope for his mastery of the classical style, while the Romantic school recalls such famous names as Wordsworth, Byron, Shelley, Keats, Tennyson, and Browning. You're now to hear a poem by Wordsworth that will not only inspire you with its beauty, but also encourage you to delve more deeply into the rich heritage of our literature, whether it be prose or verse.
Upon Westminster Bridge. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul, who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in